Hey everyone, it's MTEN. Before I jump into this video, I just want to say thank you so much for 80,000 subscribers. That is an absolutely amazing milestone. But over 90% of my viewers aren't subscribed. So if you want to see more content like this and you want to support the channel in a free and easy way that supports the channel heaps, make sure to smash that subscribe button. My goal is to reach 100,000 subscribers before the end of the year, so if we could achieve that goal, that would be absolutely amazing. Anyway, let's jump into the video. Hello everyone, it is MTEN here, back with another Terraria 1.4 Journey's End video, and today I will be discussing the top 5 best melee weapons in Terraria. These 5 weapons are ones that melee characters will want to have in their arsenal at the end of the game. So to qualify for this list, the rule is simple: the weapon only has to be classified under melee damage. A lot of people have been asking for a list that discusses the best melee weapons for various stages of the game, for example pre-planned terror, pre-boss, early hard mode, etc. And I think this could be an awesome idea. So if this video gets 2,500 likes, I'll make an overpowered weapons list that works out the best weapons at each stage of the game, or a top 5 list for the most overpowered per stage of the game for each class. Anyway, let's get back to the top 5. I just want to clarify that this top 5 list is my opinion only. It is based off DPS, usability, functionality, and various other factors that a player would look for in search of the best Terraria weapons. Please let me know your list in the comment sections down below. It's great to hear all of your thoughts, and if you see a list you agree with, make sure to give that list a thumbs up. So without further ado, let's jump into the countdown, starting with some honourable mentions. Although these weapons are really good, I can only pick 5 for this list, so this lot just missed out. The honourable mentions go to the Flare-On, the North Pole, the Starlight, and the Daybreak. Okay, now without further ado, let's jump into the main course of this video, the top 5 list. Starting with number 5. The number 5 spot, we have the Solar Eruption. The Solar Eruption is crafted with solar fragments and an ancient manipulator. Solar fragments, of course, are obtained from defeating the solar celestial pillar. This weapon works as somewhat of a combination between a flail and a spear, except it can pass through blocks, and explodes several times on impact with an enemy. The explosions deal a day broken debuff to any surrounding enemies, which deals 100 DPS per target, and therefore functions fantastically against wave events with mobs positioned close to each other. If you are playing a pre-1.4 version of Terraria, this weapon will be great for taking on the Moonlord due to its ability to attack through blocks, so keep that in mind, console and mobile players. However, post 1.4, the Moonlord's laser now pierces through blocks, and the Solar Eruption's shorter by comparison range is its shortcoming. The weapon has great single target DPS at short range, as the flail is hitting the enemy for a longer period of time, but at further range, the flail hits the enemy for a shorter period of time and subsequently creates a lower DPS. At close range, the Solar Eruption hits the enemy up to 5 times per swing, but far less at a further distance, and that is why the DPS has a differentiation. With all that being said, this is a fantastic weapon when used in most scenarios, especially during the late game events, and definitely deserves its spot on the top 5 list. Alright, let's move on to number 3. Yes, you are hearing me right, I've skipped number 4 because I've picked 2 weapons to be positioned equally at number 3. These weapons are pretty even statistically, and therefore I've given them an equal position on this list. However, I will go over each weapon separately as well, so let's begin with, we'll call it 3A, the Star Wrath. The Star Wrath is a drop from the Moonlord. It functions as a direct upgrade from the pre-hard mode Star Fury, despite having no connection with the crafting recipe. The weapon has a base damage of 110, but upon swinging, 3 stars will fall from the top of the screen, like the Star Fury, to wherever the mouse is positioned, and stop on contact with a block. However, each of these stars have a base damage of 220, or effectively 660 if all 3 stars hit their respective targets. It can be difficult to hit fast-moving targets with this weapon, as the stars take time to fall and potentially enemies will have time to dodge. However, the falling speed can be increased by increasing the character's melee speed, therefore a fast melee speed loadout will prove beneficial with this weapon. The Star Wrath is auto swing, and with the fast melee speed, this means an absolute storm of stars can ravage groups of enemies or slow moving single targets. The Starrath's falling stars give it the advantage of having an enormous range of anywhere on the screen. However, to maximise potential damage with the sword functioning as well, the range of the blade is quite small. But with that being said, 2 enemies can be targeted at once, one closer enemy with the blade and another further away enemy with the fallen stars. The Starrath is great against events and can comfortably deal above 20,000 DPS with a good loadout on multiple targets. Ultimately, I believe this weapon well and truly deserves the number 3 spot. Before I continue on to slot 3B, I just want to say that this video has been brought to you by the official MTEN Discord. As of recording, I am currently hosting a building contest on there for the best cavern pylon themed house, so if you want to participate in that, check out the builds or participate in other Discord events with the MTEN community, such as Scribble.io games. Make sure to join using the link in the description. Looking forward to seeing you all there. Anyway, let's hop back into the video. In number 3B, equal in position to the Starrath, is the Meowmia. In 1.4, the devs drastically reduced the volume of the annoying cat noise on this weapon, which is definitely a positive. Anyway, the Meowmia is a drop from the Moonlord and a reference to the classic 2011 YouTube video, Nyang Cat. The sword fires a Pop-Tart cat head projectile with a rainbow trail that bounces off blocks and pierces multiple enemies. The projectiles are also affected by gravity and will travel in a bouncing arch rather than continuing forever. The explosions that appear on each bounce are for visual purposes only and do not deal damage. The sword and projectiles each have a base damage of 200, making it the highest base damage of any melee weapon in the game. The advantage of the Meowmia's projectiles are their piercing damage and bouncing ability, making it great against multiple enemies. However, against single targets, the Starrath is a better weapon due to having multiple projectiles and a greater accuracy, especially at long range given the gravity effects and arch nature of the projectiles from the Meowmia sword. The DPS of this sword and the Starrath is pretty similar. It merely depends on the situation for which sword is better. For example, underground or in a box, the Meowmia would have a strong advantage over the Starrath, but overall, this is a very strong weapon and deserving of the equal number 3 spot on this list. In the number 2 spot, we have the Terrarian Yo-Yo. The Terrarian Yo-Yo is by far the most powerful yo-yo in the game and another Moonlord drop. This weapon was released in Terraria 1.3 with part of a crossover event with the company One Drop Yo-Yos, and in 2019 the company released a product called the Legendary Terrarium as a reference. Because of this crossover, the devs implemented in 1.4 that the Terrarium is now the only yo-yo that can obtain the Legendary modifier. With a base damage just under the Meowmia 190, the weapon by itself is already incredibly powerful. With a long base range of 25 tiles, however this can be increased as melee speed increases, and an infinite string time, the weapon also shoots homing yo-yo particles, aka Terrarium beams, and several of them per second. These particles also deal the same base damage as the yo-yo, allowing this weapon to have a very strong DPS against the single target, as the particles can fly out from the yo-yo and immediately home into that target. Not only that, but with the yo-yo glove, the DPS of the weapon against many targets is effectively more than doubled with the introduction of the second yo-yo and counterweights. However, the counterweights do not fire projectiles. The benefits of the Terrarium include its incredible single target DPS. It can access hard to reach places like any other yo-yo, and even more so with the large range. This weapon is fantastic against the Moonlord and bosses, demolishing many late game targets quite easily. Something to note which I discovered whilst researching for this video though, is due to the weapon creating immunity frames on the target, the Terrarium can only deal damage to a target 6 times per second, therefore a yo-yo bag and counterweights will not dramatically increase the DPS of the weapon against a single target. However, they are great against multiple enemies and hordes, as the projectiles will home in on the other mobs. So with all that being said, that is why the Terrarium is in the number 2 slot for the best 5 melee weapons in Terraria 1.4. Finally, let's move on to number 1, the best melee weapon in the game. I'm sure this will be a major surprise to many of you, an absolute shock, but without further ado, the number 1 best melee weapon in Terraria is the Zenith. Okay, so no surprises here, the Zenith is the best melee weapon in Terraria Journey's End. The fabled final sword of Terraria, the Zenith has one of the largest crafting recipes in the game. If you're a melee player, you should keep an eye out for these weapons throughout your journey and hold on to them for this final crafting recipe. because the Zenith requires the Terror Blade, Meowmia, Star Wrath, Influx Waver, Horseman's Blade, Seedler, Star Fury, Beekeeper, Enchanted Sword, and of course the almighty Copper Short Sword. I know a lot of you are probably wondering where that thing is on this list, but you know. Anyway, the Zenith ignores enemy invincibility frames, so it will just be a constant barrage of attacks on a mob, and can deal up to 50k DPS on a single target. This weapon essentially seems to have an infinite range, only being limited by wherever the mouse reaches, so if you have multiple monos, it can have a super extended range. Originally, the sword was going to be a different weapon called the First Fractal, and it had a completely different attack pattern. However, the First Fractal is now unobtainable, and you have to use mods and other methods to get it into the game. The Zenith flings out swords in a circular pattern, 3 per use, and it auto-targets enemies within 25 tiles of the player, even if they aren't targeted with the mouse. The Zenith will also attack through blocks. The potential DPS of this weapon is absurd, and with wiring setups it has been spotted achieving 8 million DPS. The advantage this melee weapon has over others in this list is it is the absolute best in every scenario, really giving melee characters an endgame edge. The DPS on single targets is enormous enough, but its piercing ability makes the potential DPS absolutely ridiculous. I don't really see any downsides to this weapon, and that is why Zenith is the best melee weapon in Terraria 1.4. So, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed and learned something new. If you've made it to the end, you know what to do. Comment treasure bag down below so that I know you've made it to the end of this video, and I'll be replying to comments in the comment section. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed and learned something new. If you did, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more Terraria content coming soon. Remember, if this video gets 5,000 likes, I will work on a top 5 summoner weapons list, so turn on notifications for that. As mentioned at the start, please leave your lists in the comment section down below, and if there's a list you agree with, give that comment a thumbs up. If you haven't seen it yet, check out my top 5 weapons overall for Terraria 1.4, which I will have a link to on screen now. That will be all for today. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. See you all next time.